This week on the Fifth Trooper podcast.
Okay, so that's just for lightsabers. I have a whole friggin'
for
paint
one
bottle.
lightsaber.
Welcome to the Fifth Trooper podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Fifth Trooper podcast. My name is Jay Shalansky, and joining me today is Evan Bulris.
Hey, how's it going?
And Nick Allen.
Hey.
Today, we're going to talk about a few things, but before we start, I'd like to just remind everybody about the Northeast Open. That is the Legion tournament we're going to be throwing here in Syracuse at the Salt City Comic Con. Really jacked about this. I don't know, you've started seeing some other announcements about us giving away last and second to last prizes. I'm actually working on a whole list of other prizes as well. And, I'm going to start announcing those in the next few days or a few weeks rather. And, I just, so if you're wondering what you get for your money, everyone that's coming, no matter what, is going to walk away with something.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So we're going to have these pretty cool swag bags filled with junk. And so, just a little teaser, we are doing our own custom order tokens and order token bags. And I'm not going to, that's my tease for those. I'll send out the design maybe in a few weeks to start getting more people. But for our lovely listeners who are listening right now, that'll be, there's your little tease. You will get order tokens and an order token bag as one of our giveaways to everyone who comes.
Yeah, they look pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and so that's exciting. And there'll be other other things in the swag bag that every single person who attends will get. We've already kind of figured out. We're gonna give. You'll have a first, second, and third place for the actual game. You'll have a first, second, and third place for best painted army. Evan came up with this amazing idea. It kind of evolved, right, Evan? So we started it as like, hey, if you fly T-47s, we want to give whoever brings a T-47 list an award. And then I kind of changed it a little bit. And this, Evan had a great idea and I took it over and mutilated it. But because I was just worried that because you definitely would be losing if you brought a T-47, I wanted it to be more like the jankiest list. So maybe you're not giving up being competitive in order to just get this like trophy. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I thought the idea of the thing was so people, if they wanted to come and just play and not be competitive, they could have something to shoot for. But a jankiest list works too. I don't know how we're going to measure that.
It's gonna be. We'll vote on it between us and the scoundrels. We'll have a 6-way vote on who we think brought the jankiest list, and then that person's gonna get a trophy and a prize.
Okie doke.
So we're calling it the Golden T-47 Award. So it's pretty exciting. So yeah, and then just tons of other stuff, and you'll be seeing it soon. I'll be announcing it all soon online and everywhere. So keep looking for that, and please register. We're getting a ton of people registering, and so if you want to get in, so you're not on the wait list, go up, register on the website, get in there, and get ready for Syracuse Northeast Open. It's gonna be great.
It's coming up soon, man. Time is ticking away.
Yeah, a month and a half.
Is that soon?
Yeah.
I thought we had 2 months. All right.
Yeah, month and a half. So, but yeah, so cool. So fifthtrooper.com, on the top, you'll see Northeast Open. Go ahead, get up there and register for the Northeast Open. Then the other thing is we are still doing our giveaway. We're giving away a tank and a land speeder. You can sign up for that on the fifthtrooper.com. You'll see giveaway in the top menu, and go sign up for that. Just, toss us a like on Facebook, a follow on Twitter, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. And you'll be entered to win for a tank or a land speeder. So there's that.
That is a $50 to $60 value.
Yes. Yeah, I did that with the first and the last place for the Northeast Open, because if you're first or if you're not first place, sorry, the last place or second to last place at the Northeast Open, you're going to be able to pick one of our fifth trooper mats, and so it's like a $70 value because that's what we sell them for. But yeah, so we still have those in stock. So if you want to get one of either the Mud Planet or the Salt Planet, I highly recommend going up to the website and buying one of those. There's going to be some of the terrain creators out in the community will be making terrain for those mats. So there will be terrain going with those, and hopefully we're going to be able to debut some of that at the Northeast Open. So that'll be pretty cool.
No, I'm excited for a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Yeah, and I think we've talked about this a few times, but I'm just looking forward to our schedule that we have, and it means that we'll be able to hang out with everybody and kind of, meet people. I'm gonna try to work up like a meet and greet somewhere too for the Northeast Open, so you could come meet us and you could come meet the scoundrels and anybody else from the community that's going to be there. And I think we're going to do that at one of the places in the mall on Saturday night. I'm still trying to work that out, but I think that'll be fun.
Cool. I know,
So
Dave and Buster's has back rooms we might be able to rent.
yeah.
Plus, it's Dave and Buster's.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it
Yeah.
out. Right. That's always fun. Yeah. And so, okay, so there's that. Okay. So from last week, I was talking about painting and just giving quick tips on painting and how to do it on the cheap and stuff. And I got yelled at by, no, I'm just kidding. There was a bunch of guys on the Discord channel that thought I was insane because I was talking about painting, and I was talking about using the Citadel paints, the little pots, and using the lip and stuff, and how much I like the lip to get my paints and so on and so forth. And there was a number of guys on the Discord channel, Croker and Grand Admiral Thrawn and stuff, that really they thought I was insane because of how they do their painting. So I thought I'd shed a little light on that. And what they thought I was insane is that they use wet palettes. And so basically what a wet palette is it's a palette that you can mix your paint in that can be closed so that you preserve the paint and the paint doesn't dry up. And so if you're doing a lot of mixing and you're not going to be able to finish in one setting, you got to be able to keep your paint. And so there's these things called wet palettes. It could be something as simple as wax paper in a Tupperware container. They actually on Amazon for like $9 or $10, you can get wet palette, professional wet palettes for miniature painting. And so a lot of the guys were just kind of recommending those to me, and so I thought I would pass that recommendation on to those of you that didn't know about that. And yeah, I mean, listen, I use wax paper or paper plates sometimes in a pinch to mix my paints. I found that I don't the times that I need to keep them for a longer than the amount of time I'm painting in that period is kind of rare. And so I generally will mix a smaller batch so that I don't waste any paint. And also, this is just not to like toot my own horn, but something that I found that I'm pretty good at is matching that color again. So I don't, I've never really struggled with that. But I know that that's something a lot of guys have recommended. So I just wanted to pass that along to our listeners.
Yeah, I'd seen wet palettes, and I was told when I was just starting not to worry about them because they're kind of not a high level thing, but they're more than where I was at kind of thing. 'Cause I just came off using
Yep.
tester's paint, so what the heck did I know about anything? Because one of the guys there had them, and he's like, "Yeah, man, don't worry about it. Just wait till you get to the point where you get brush control and you can actually you'll know when you're ready for
Hmm.
something like that, when you want to go the next step, and just taking it out of the pot isn't quite doing it for you. Uh, so yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. But where I'm at, I'm happy just taking it out of the actual thing itself.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I understood what they were saying, and a lot of these, listen, a lot of those guys that were making that recommendation to me are a lot better at painting than I am, and so my recommendations for everyone listening are more along the lines of I need this done cheap and quick and easy. And so I'm just giving you those. And as I explained to those guys, it's just it's mostly from a place of laziness, that this is coming where it's like, okay, I gotta get this done. How can I do it quickly and efficiently and not have to go into all this other hootenanny to get it done?
No, I think it was good advice. Also, it's funny, we released that, then like the day after, they talk about the Fantasy Flight official paint. Well, the Army Painter branded
Yeah.
Fantasy Flight Legion paints. I thought was really funny. Uh, what kind of timing?
Yeah, we had no idea. I mean, I knew that the FFG was doing a live stream that day, but I had no idea that that's what it was going to be about. So that was funny.
Womp womp.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, a bunch of people had commented. I had posted on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page some pictures of units, the tank, Krennic, and the Death Troopers that I was painting over the weekend, and I just kind of posted them up as like, "Hey, getting ready for the rally point next weekend." And a number of people reached out and said they really liked the paint job on the tank. So I just thought maybe I could walk through that a little bit of how I did that without visual. We're just going to do it audio wise. But Evan or Nick, if you guys want to ask questions as I'm going, as kind of from view of the office, I'm sorry, as view of the audience, that might be good.
Sure.
Does that sound good
Sure.
for you guys? Okay. So I put the tank together, which was a pain in the ass. And then what I did was I hit it with I primed it with a gray, like a darker gray, um, almost a gunmetal gray, a little bit lighter, but that type of gray. For those of you that know what that is, then what I did was I hit the whole tank immediately with a wash. So I just went and I got I think I used Nuln oil from Citadel, and I took a big brush and I didn't care about trying to force it into the cracks and crevices. I mean that was the goal, right? Is to get the shadows in those cracks and crevices, but it was really to just cover this thing in a wash. And so that's what I did. So I did that. And then I came through with there's a paint by Citadel called Lead Belcher, and it's a gray that's got kind of a shine, like a lead kind of sheen to it. And what I did there is I kind of hit the whole tank with a dry brushing effect. So I just took a little bit on my brush and I just whisked it across the whole tank, trying to focus mostly on the edging and stuff. And then I did that. Then I took kind of this reddish orange it's a little bit of a rust color from I believe it was called Rust from this one was from Army Painter, and I kind of did a little dry brushing with that. I filled in some spots where I thought that like maybe water would kind of get into and sink into towards the back of the tank. I was kind of looking at where like things would come on and off the sides of the tank on those vents where the kyber crystal tanks go. I kind of hit that a little bit heavier with the rust. And so I did that a little bit. Then what I did was I went through, and so there's areas on the tank, like especially on the back bed near where the kyber crystal tanks go, in between where those latch points are. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where they got the little like latch hooks on the back of the tank. They're
Yep.
like the eyelets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's these lines where that kind of separate these paneling for the tank. So like anywhere where I saw stuff like that, I tried to hit it not so much with a dry brush, but a little bit. It was dry, but I had a little bit of lead belch on there, and just try to focus on those areas and widen those up a little bit, and because that kind of gives it this nice like worn look. And then what I did was I decided that the ground was going to be an Armageddon dust, which is a texture paint by Citadel, and I'm going to cover some more texture stuff in a little bit for basing. So I knew like I would use kind of a mud slash sandy color. And so I hit the tank with some like a mudding effect. And basically what that is, it's kind of like dry brushing, but you're getting a little bit more on your brush and you're kind of like dabbing the tank. Do you know what? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And so you take a look at the tank as to where you think mud and dust and dirt would go. And if you do that and then you hit it again with another belcher dry brush, you'll get this kind of sand like dust effect rather than like a wet mud effect. And so that's kind of what I did. Then I touched up any of the points where like those eyelets on the side, I just went over those with like a chainmail silver. I anywhere where I really wanted something metal to highlight, that's what I did. I hit it with a chainmail silver. On the back and on the right side, I hit it with a little yellow black warning, like caution tape almost type of thing, because you see those on. I thought it'd be interesting to put that on there because you see that on equipment where there's like a drop on like on a back of a loading truck or something, you'll see these caution tape areas, and I thought that would be interesting to throw on the tank. Yeah, and then all the guns I painted black, and then I just hit them with the chainmail silver with a dry brush, and that kind of gives it this 3D worn effect. Yeah, and then yeah, go ahead.
What I did with mine is I took a dry brush silver around where I think it would scrape if it was like in a loading dock or
Yep.
I was going over rough terrain, and that came out pretty okay. So I think we both had kind of the same idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, and then I did like I said, the Armageddon dust for the ground for like a desert dirt kind of plain. Then I put a wash on it. I think it was the Sephira wash from Citadel. And then I did a little dry brush over the top with a lighter like tan dirt color.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, it came out. I remember I was walking around on the phone yesterday and I saw the tank and I'm like, hey, this looks real good.
Hey, thanks, man.
Mine came out okay. I was trying to go for a. I'm still like flip flopping whether I want all my guys to be like World War II German look or Cobra troop look. They're kind of the same thing, right? So I decided to end up going with the Cobra look. So my tank's German looking though. That's why I was a little late today, as I had to go pick up some blue paint. But it's no, yours came out way better than mine did.
Yeah, it's just different. I don't know about better. But yeah, so that's what I did. I was chatting with everybody on the Discord, and I've always been for me, I've always been into vehicles, painting vehicles and doing terrain. Like those are always my favorite things to do. And I tend to spend way more time on the vehicles, the terrain, the basing than I do on the actual figures themselves, so my vehicles and my terrain always turn out really well, and then my figures are okay, but more quick. And I think it's almost daunting because there's more models to cover, when you're painting minis versus like one vehicle.
Oh, oh,
And
sure. I
I
mean, like when I was doing my rebels, I had like 35 rebels, or when I'm doing my imperialist, one ATST, right? Like,
Right.
man, that's way easier.
It is, and I think too it's easier from the standpoint that it's like magnified, right? Because the minis, there's a lot of detail work in there, and you get frustrated because you're trying to like put black in the on the lens of a stormtrooper's helmet, and you like accidentally screw up, or like your hand twitches or something, and you end up messing up. And I think with like vehicles and stuff, the overall painting you can just be a lot sloppier and quicker with, and it'll still look really good.
Yeah, I had to buy a bigger brush to do the tank. Just because I had
Yeah.
one, I'm like, wow, this is taking for gosh darn ever. And then after doing that, man, yeah, it was just way easier.
Yeah, and yeah, I love doing vehicles. And then the other thing, I like doing with, and I think you guys see this with all my figures, is I try to paint them. I guess realistic is the word I would use, where it's like, and I don't mean that like copying the stormtroopers from the movie. What I mean is, like, I literally have one set of stormtroopers that I painted, where they actually have like clean armor. All my other stormtroopers are like, well, okay, what, like, I always have a story behind them. So you guys have seen some of my units. So like the one stormtroopers that are the desert stormtroopers, like, in my head, they were the survivors of Jakku, where like the big battle that was on Jakku. So they've got like blast marks on their armor. They're like dirtied up from the sand and the dirt, and they've been like traversing through the desert of Jakku to get to their ship or something. And that's like, I always have these like weird storylines behind my minis
You
when
make
I'm
them
painting them.
authentic to an environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and because like I get like white, okay, white and black stormtroopers, fine. That's what they look like in the movies, but I'm just like, okay, but if we're playing a war game, right? Where all these minis and all these units are in these huge battles, well, we should probably paint them like they've been in battle.
Yeah, I like your guys you put cloaks on that you haven't quite done yet. I think they'd look real cool too.
Oh yeah, so those guys, I used green stuff. So there's this stuff this is actually a great segue. Thank you, Evan. One of our listeners emailed me and said, "Oh, okay, cool. You gave us all this great tips on painting and everything, but how do you clean up your models when you first get them out, and like the gaps and all that stuff?" So green stuff is what it's called. It's basically this plastic. It comes in a two-part, a yellow and a blue. You can get it from online from their website, Citadel. I like theirs the best. And basically what happens is when you mix them together, you make them green, and then you apply them to either sculpt something, to fill in gaps, to create something on your mini, and then like 24 to 30 hours to let set, and they turn to hard plastic.
Yeah, I had Brad do the Cobra mask for my Cobra Commander with green stuff, and I'm gonna have him do Krennic as President Cobra Commander with the hood,
Oh, yeah.
right? And then Krennic's gonna be another Cobra. So the idea is they're all Cobra Commander, but if I play two, one's a decoy, right? Like one's
I like
body
that.
double. But yeah, Krennic's gonna be President Cobra, so he's gotta have the hood, right? So I think I'll have Brad Green stuff a hood on him. I think that'll look pretty good.
But yeah, so those stormtroopers you were talking about, Evan, they have basically, the thought is they're on this barren planet that they're like I have two sets. So there's the stormtroopers and then death troopers that have both been kind of stuck on this planet, and they were kind of the forward, units that the Empire sent to kind of scope it out and see what the natives are doing on this planet and everything. And then the Empire changed missions and tactics, or maybe it was after the Empire got destroyed at the end of Return of the Jedi, and they forgot about them. And so now these troopers have been having to survive this harsh environment on this planet. So what the thought was, like, okay, they're on this planet, they're like getting beat by the weather and the environment and all this stuff. So they actually like killed these alien animals, and similar to like a buffalo hide or something like that, they built like these capes and hoods to like wear to like keep the dust and the elements and the out of like, because their armor's starting to wear down and stuff. And yeah, so I built the capes and the hoods out of green stuff. There's also liquid green stuff, or there used to be. I'm not sure if they make it anymore, but it's exactly what it sounds like. It's green stuff that's been liquefied, and you kind of paint it into cracks and crevices, and that'll cover up and fill those areas for you as well.
Yeah, Legion models have tend to have those little extra like gaps because you kind of put them together kind of oddly, right?
Yep.
So that stuff looks pretty good. Also, you get sometimes like they just don't like fit all the way, so that's where the green stuff can come in just to make it look like there's something in that gap.
Yeah, and so what you do is you put that green stuff in and let it harden before you prime. And then you can hit the prime. The other thing, and this is going to become a bigger deal with the droids because they're coming in sprues. So you're going to get yourself a pair of clips or snips, and you can usually get hobby ones that have a fine point. And basically, what they are is, I don't know if that's the proper word for them, but they're just basically like they look like a pair of pliers, but they're cutters instead at the end. And you can get ones that have like a finer head so that you can get in smaller places because you're going to need those to snip your droids out of the sprues. So you want those. You're going to want an X-Acto knife with blades, sharp, new blades. That'll help you clean off some of sometimes you get some residue plastic that's sticking out. So you kind of just knock it off with that X-Acto knife. And then you can also they have, they're almost like nail filing boards, but they're for hobby stuff, and they're small. They're maybe like an 1/8 inch wide by an 1/8 inch thick, and they're basically just small sandpaper on these sticks so that you can sand down and smooth out the edging and stuff. And sometimes you have to do that with green stuff after it hardens. Like you put it in, and then you get you could steal a file board, or at Walmart you could go buy file boards or steal one from your wife or girlfriend, and just use that to kind of file down any of the rough spots so that it smooths it out.
Yeah, I've got these little metal files that always make my hands smell like metal shavings. I don't know where they were made, but yeah, I do that sometimes with those to get that because sometimes the knife just doesn't quite get where you need to be.
Yeah, and that's going to be way more important with the droids, I think. Most of my models have been pretty clean overall. And if they're not, yeah, I just use a little X-Acto knife and sand it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's some pretty sound advice there.
Yeah. Okay, so last week we talked about basing miniatures. And I was talking about the coarse texture gel, mixing it with brown paint, and that's how you can. So I kind of wanted to go over some other texture stuff. So Citadel actually has a whole line of textured paints, and they range from like cracked surfaces to like sand surfaces, and you'll notice in some of the original pictures of the FFG stuff, they have kind of like this sandy base almost. And so how they achieve that is, so if you're going to use Citadel, you would use this thing called Armageddon dust, and it's basically paint with sand in it is what it comes down to. And you paint that on, it hardens up so it's kind of bumpy. Then what you do is you toss, like I was saying with the tank, you toss a wash over it to make it dark, in the shadow areas. And then you dry brush over the top with like a light tan, or like gosh, what's the forgot the name of it, but yeah, there's a tan color that Citadel puts out that kind of you just dry brush over the top, and that gives you kind of this sand feel or
Gotcha.
dirt feel. So that's with Citadel. There's also stuff called sanded tile grout. So like if you went to the hardware store, you could go get tile grout, and you could get the sanded kind, and that'll give you the same effect. But you'll have to paint it a couple times. So you'll have to put the tile grout down, then you'll have to put a base coat of paint on it, then wash it, then do a dry brush. Where the Citadel texture paints already come with the texture, but then also with the coloring in them, where the tile grout's just going to be white, basically.
I actually found spray paints you can get at hobby stores that are like textured spray paint, and they
Yeah.
have ones that look like sand and dirt. So I would just carve a hill out of something and just use those to make it look like a sandy hill or a like a sandy whatever I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I guess you could do that for miniature bases too. If you do the texture first and then put the minis on. I don't like putting texture on. I think I mentioned this last episode. I don't like putting the texture on first and then putting the minis on top of it because the glue doesn't hold as well, and then the texture will just chip off, like when you drop them, and then your mini will just come off. Versus, if you glue plastic to plastic, it's generally a better hold.
Yeah.
But that works too. That I've used that spray stuff as well. So then there's this other, there's a bunch of other lines. Like I just used this one on so that was on those Death Troopers, and then the hooded ones that you were talking about, Evan.
Yeah.
That cracked red surface. So it looks like it almost looks like the salt flats out in Utah or on Crate, but it's like red. And so it comes out as like this Martian, like red, cracked, dry surface. And that stuff's really neat. And so it comes in like a tall pot of it. And it's kind of in the bottle, it's like a thick, goopy paint. And what you do is you apply it to whatever surface. But the thicker the paint is in areas, the bigger the cracks and more interesting the cracks will be. And then the less the paint is, or the thinner you spread the paint out, the less the cracks will be.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of come up with these creative things where, like, okay, maybe between my mini's legs, like there's these more cracks, and then maybe over here there's not going to be as much. And so they got a couple paints that do that. The one is Martian Iron Crust. Then there's Argelian Badland. That's a neat one too. And these gives you these big kind of cracks and pieces and chunks. The thing I do with that sometimes too is, so even though it's red, or the other one is kind of a tan, what you can do is like for ice, I did this on my Veers and on my some of my snow troopers, where I painted I primed the whole mini, let's say black or whatever, or white in the case of the snow troopers. I then painted the base blue, and then I came over with the Martian Iron Crust, which is red, but that's okay. You let it dry completely, then you paint over it with like a light blue, and then you dry brush the whole thing with a white, and it looks like ice, like chunks of ice and
Nice.
stuff on there. Yeah, and so that's a neat way of doing things. They have this other one that I like that's called Astrogranite Debris. It kind of looks like, almost like when you put it on, it's almost like an iron, like metal rock thing that it forms. It's really neat. And then you can do some dry brushing to it to make it look almost like an asteroid surface or something. So that's cool. There's also, if you want that kind of crack effect of the Iron Crust or the Badlands, but you want to do it like in larger pieces, like and you don't want to spend all the money on the Citadel, there's a thing called Crackle Paste Medium that you can find in an art store for acrylics, and that'll do the same thing when it dries. So you kind of mix it up. You can mix it up with a pigment, with another paint, or you can. It's usually white, and you can paint it on, and it'll do all the crackle, and then you can paint over it with whatever color you want the ground to be.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I've seen some people do that on like vehicles for damage effects.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So here's a little tip. So going back to the tank or any vehicle, or like let's say an ATST, right? If you want to do like a 3-dimensional rusting technique, I can kind of give you a way to do that.
Hit me.
All right. So it depends on how much, but usually what I do is there's 2 ways you can do this. The first way is you can take like a red and an orange, or maybe an orange and a red, yellow or something, but to try to get like a rust effect. Okay. So you take your whole model and you go get the primer that looks like rust. Okay. Like a rust color, like an orangey red. You prime your whole model with that. Okay. You let it dry. Then you pick on the model where you want the rusting to happen. Okay.
Okay.
So what you do then is you hit it in those areas, you hit it with some hairspray. Then where you hit that hairspray is you could take kosher salt or rock salt, and you pour salt on it and let it dry and stick. Okay, so the salt sticks. So once you do that across your whole mini and you get all the areas for rusting where you want the rust to come through the top layer of paint, okay, you then hit it with your gray, for instance. Okay, you prime it gray after that. So now you got all these bumpy areas, okay? Now go through, paint all your details, do all this stuff, do whatever you want. Then this is what you do. You take a Q-tip or a cotton ball or something, you get it wet, and you rub those areas where the salt is, and what happens is the water reactivates the hairspray, and so the hairspray will loosen up and let the salt go, and now you'll get this three-dimensional layered effect of rusting because the top layer of paint is now actually peeling off.
Oh, gotcha.
And so yeah. And then what you could do too is take like a wire brush and kind of, get that wet and then rub it across, and that'll give you like a harsher, like scraping feel as well.
Because I bought a blue spray primer. I don't know if I have that. Because I was going to get my ATST. I was going to get my whole army primed, at least some of it tonight.
Yeah.
Man, so what'd you say it was I need for that? To do the rust? Or do I want my Cobra stuff to look like it was factory fresh? I mean, it just blows up anyway, right? It's just meant to...
Yeah, factory fresh.
Yeah, it doesn't last long enough to actually get like a round 2, right?
No.
This isn't no G.I. Joe tank, right?
But you start with like an orange rust color.
Okay.
Prime that first. Then hairspray where you want rust, and put the salt chunks. Kosher salt works good, rock salt. And then not table salt. It's got to be chunky, like chunked salt. Then you put that on there, dip it in the salt after you got the hairspray on, and then prime it with your blue in your case. And then you use water to reactivate and just rub off the salt, and that'll leave like this rusting effect. Yep. And actually, I have a YouTube video up that I did months and months ago, doing terrain like
for
this.
A downed
I took
ATST.
an ATST. Yeah, before I knew they were coming out with the downed ATST, and I created some terrain with it, and I did this rusting effect. So you can actually go watch the video, and I talk through it there, and so you can kind of see how it's done. So that's
I remember we did that a while ago, and then I thought I just forgot you had done it until they announced, was it May 30th for the downed ATST? Is that the date?
Yeah, May 30th. Yep. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people forgot about it, including myself. So, but it's up there on the YouTube channel. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk playing. So, first off, last night, Evan and I played a game. We're getting ready for a rally point on Saturday, and we're going to talk through our lists in a second. But Nick came over and got to play a little bit too, as Evan and I were taking breaks for work phone calls. But Nick, why don't you kind of give us? This was your first time playing Imperial, and you got to see both sides. So, what'd you think?
Well, it was weird playing somebody else's list and not knowing what to do first and foremost. Like, and then stepping into somebody else's strategy when I wasn't paying attention. So like Jay was trying to take out the ATST that Evan had, and I was just like, yeah, that thing's really big. And like, as a Rebel player, I never even think to try and take that thing out because it just doesn't happen. There's no impact unless I have an ATRT. So I started shooting units, and then I took a couple shots at the ATST after Jay was just like, yeah, that's what I was doing. And just like, this is useless. It's better to knock off some trooper units. But it's really nice rolling red defense dice. Never got to do that before except with Luke, and it works out real well. And then from Evan's side, I messed him up because he had heal bots, and I didn't know what those did or why they were there.
My Death Troopers.
And then, yeah, Imperials are DLT 19s are really good. Like, it provides a lot of options that you don't otherwise have because range 4 is really far. And Death Troopers are very good compared to Pathfinders. Granted, I've only played Pathfinders
dude.
once, but they did not feel very good. Death Troopers felt very good.
It's rough because Death
Mhm.
Troopers are so good, right? Like they can do so much, and then I feel like for the same cost ish, you build Pathfinders. They just don't
Mm.
feel as good to play. You know, like I don't know, they just don't feel as like
Well,
as
once
solid.
again, you have white defense dice versus red defense dice. The red defense dice mean you can like get away with more, and it feels like you have more options with the Death Troopers, where the Pathfinders still just they have to hide, even with their
They're just wearing t-shirts and
even
pants,
with
man.
their extra abilities with Dauntless. They have Dauntless.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was fun seeing you play the two lists and jump in between them, and it was interesting because Evan and I were both playing lists that are new to us that we're going to bring to the rally point. Well, variations of what we played last night are coming to the rally point. And I don't know. I think, gosh, I think I was talking to Mike from the Notorious Scoundrels about this and how the game has become much more range heavy. Like it's all about range 4 now, especially with Death Troopers out.
Mm-hmm.
And like last night in our game, really we were playing I was blue, we were playing moisture evaporators. I got mine up, and I think at one point, Nick, I said to you, I go, yeah, so we're just gonna, I go, really, the strategy now is just to pull back and just hide.
Oh,
Like that's our strategy at this point. And you were like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And basically what it was is that blue player gets the tie in all games. We were already up on MOV, that's for the points. And so I was just like, yep, just get back. He can't make it to our moisture evaporators to add, to heal the wounds. So if we just hide, he can't do anything. That was
well, I understood the strategy, but I'm just like, hide where? Like those Death Troopers, and some other, and the Stormtrooper units were way up there, and all the like the good cover that really blocked line of sight was way back. So it's just like, I'm just gonna get murdered trying to pull back. So it's just like, the hell with that. And that's also just not the way I play. Because I am
Yeah,
super
well,
aggressive, which is why I struggle with Rebels. Is that
mhm.
I like to force plays.
That's fair. And so what I like to do, and to kind of counter what Nick was talking about right there, is I like to force my opponent into making mistakes. And what I do, and what I meant by falling back and finding places to hide, is get behind some line blocking terrain if we can, or get some better cover, but also get out of some of the range of like his ATST and some of his other stuff, and then force Evan to come to us. And then we've set up fire lanes so that when he does that, we just hold him off until the end of the game. And, and I think that has been from somebody actually emailed me the other day and they just started listening to the podcast, so they were on like episode 1 or 2 or maybe 5 or whatever they were on. They were way in the beginning of the podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, definitely listen to all the episodes, but you should probably listen to the last 5 or 6, because we're talking about new stuff and we kind of have some perspective. And then I went back and was listening to some of the stuff, and it was just interesting because my game style has completely shifted from back then to now, which it should. I've been playing a lot and I've been learning a lot, and I am much more of a reserved player now. And I don't know how I know, Nick, you've just gotten back into it, but I don't know how, if you see that at all in my play, where it's just like I used to be more run and gun and like, oh yeah, let's do this, and it's like, and just run guys out at you and like try to take objectives and try to force stuff. But now I'm more of like, yeah, I'm gonna set up some fire lanes. Let's see what happens.
So the way I see it is, you are far more aware of the rules and what you can get away with within those rules. Is you're playing for the objectives, you're playing for points when you need to, and you take advantage of situations where you can exploit that. That's what I see a lot of. Like, you pop out one sniper and keep one behind cover so they can only kill one. You run away when you know you're going to win. Things like that, where before you would just press the battle forward and then like run at people. So like you said, reserved more than aggressive, but also like that other layer of like, you know what it takes to win, and then that's what you do.
Yeah, and it's those, I think those things that you start to realize, like activation control matters, wounds matter, and so you just start to try to protect those things early on. And like sometimes, if I have veers in my list, I don't even deploy my snipers out so you can even see one. I leave them behind line of sight coverage so that I can hand them an aim token, and then I pop them out after, if I can wait. But with this list I have now, I generally can. But my snipers are generally the last to go during the first turn, and then I try to get them to be the first or second to go during the second turn. And so stuff like that you kind of learn along the way. And things I've accidentally left both snipers out and had somebody, like another, like a rebel, I think it was against David from the Notorious Scoundrels, where he rolled like a double crit on rebel snipers, and then that just destroyed my sniper team. So you just learn these things the hard way by playing. And I think for me, it gets even worse when you're like this weekend. I don't know what the time limit is. Did they say the time limit, Evan, for the rounds for that rally point? Was that in their description?
I didn't see it. I know it starts at 12. Registration starts at 12. Games start 12:30, and they have it set at 10 p.m. Sounds like the cutoff.
Yeah.
For like
So
for done, I guess.
yeah, 3 rounds. So, well, okay. So let's say it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever they are going to end up doing. I find myself too playing in competitive games like that, like going, okay, well, I don't think we're going to make it to round 5. So I need to push. Or, all right, we're in round 4 already. We're definitely going to make it to round 6. So now I can lay back a little bit. And so, I find myself doing that a lot too, playing not only to the points and to the rules, but then also to the clock. And really, that's your biggest enemy, I think, in tournaments, is the clock.
I'm muted. I'm talking to nobody. Yeah,
Perfect.
well, it can be, right? So like some games I play and then we're both like going, we're both sweating, and then like we realize there's an hour left after we finish, and we go, oh. And other times, you're playing and then you're like, the pace of play is slow, and then you look at the clock and you realize you got half an hour left, and you're on end of turn 3, and you're just like, oh geez, right? Like it's tough. Like I think from now on, what I'm going to start doing is just when they say time start, I'm just going to start timer on my phone, so I have my own personal thing. So normally I just let the auto, like the wherever they are, they usually put up like on a clock somewhere. But sometimes they don't, and it's important just to understand what time is. So if you're playing with somebody, be like, hey, we got half an hour left, we need to pick it up, right? Like it's okay. There's a reasonable pace of play, and it's okay to be like, hey man, like we gotta,
Yeah. Not to be sinister, but it's almost like I think you only do that if it's in your favor. Like if they're trying to run the clock and they're being slow, but that works in your favor, then you probably shouldn't rush them, or you know what I mean?
That's fair. I never will accuse anybody ever of slow play.
Yeah.
But it's just how fast my brain works in these games, where I'm already like a turn ahead, a turn or two ahead, even if I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. Like I don't have like the perfect game plan. I'm thinking that fast. So when it's my turn, I'm like move, range, shoot, and then I've like by the time he touches a unit, I've already figured out my next unit. So I'm just ready to like go. And some people don't. They wait, and they really want to think and make sure they don't make a mistake, because I make mistakes. Every once in a while, I'm like, man, I should have pulled that back. But I'm always in favor of, even an X-wing, when time's in my favor, I'll still pick up the pace because I want to give the other guy a chance. Nothing feels as bad as losing to time.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think too, though, how many, I mean, it's very few matches that actually go to 6 rounds within time anymore. And so, I think you got to play to the clock. Like, that's part of being competitive in this game, right? Is understanding the time and what's going to actually happen within that time limit.
No, sure. I'm just saying, don't take extra long turns to try to.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that either. Yeah.
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 No, I got
Right. Because
what
it's
you're saying. Is
playing.
be cognizant of all times.
Uh,
About if you're like an hour and a half
mhm.
in and you're in the middle of turn 2, like that's a problem, right? You got to tell your opponent, like, hey man, we gotta like
Yeah.
jazz it up just a little bit. You don't have to say it meanly, but like, hey man, like we got, we're already over halfway through this match and we're only in the middle of turn 2. We should probably pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, I worry, especially in the higher competitive, like how people would take that. Just as a thought.
I mean, it's at an X-wing. There's a rule of a reasonable amount of time for each turn, and you don't have to rush a guy. But if they're taking like 5 minutes to 7 minutes, like for one unit to be activated, that's a problem, probably, right?
Well, yeah, and I think you're right. I think you say something like, "Hey, could you, do you listen, man? Like, we got to pick it up a little bit." And then if they're still doing it, then I think that's a judge call.
No, and that's correct, right? Because it's, and you can tell. There's just guys who just play slow, and after you play enough, and you can tell like this guy, this is just how he plays. Other times you can tell a guy is going real fast. Then when you see the time is in his favor, everything slows right down, right? You're like, okay, that's when you can be like, hey man, can we pick it up? That's when you have that conversation, I
Yeah.
think. But you'll feel it eventually, and it's never looks bad to call a judge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, people when they play Magic call judges all the time, right? They even Wizards trains judges to do stuff like this. Warhammer does all sorts of stuff like that too. So I think it's important that never feel bad for calling a judge on something like this, but just have that conversation like, hey man, we're taking a little while here. Maybe we could speed up the gameplay just a little bit so we can get to the round 4 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Okay, so speaking of the rally point, what do you want? You want to go through lists there, Evan, or do you want to just talk in generality about your list?
No, I'll talk about my list.
Right. So I think you
I
should
don't mind.
do. So we should go say what your list is, and then we can go through what we were talking about before we started the cast, and I'll walk through that reasoning.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
And your question to me at that time.
So I am taking actually just a generic officer with strict orders. I'm taking 5 Stormtroopers with DLT, 3 with R4 Astromech. I'm taking 3 snipers, just the strike team, and an ATST with the Elite Hammer Pilot, the Surge to hit, the Twin Light Blaster, the one that gives you the extra rainbow at range 1 to 3, and then the Mortar. And right now I have 11 points on the table.
So what I saw the list, and what I was saying is I think you could take out one of those astromechs and just have 2, because I think the 3 what's going to happen is you're going to end up tying down 3 units, like trying to heal up this ATST, and you're going to be more focused on that than like getting that 3rd stormtrooper unit into where it needs to be. Because I think what's going to happen is, even though you have 5 core unit and 3 special forces, depending on the objective, that you're going to want more core units focused on objective taking, right, at that point. And so if you have one tied up in an astromech, it just worries me that you may be like, oh no, I got to keep him near the ATST. Just
Yeah, the nice thing is astromechs are free actions, so I can like the idea is, because the ATST, if you shoot through it, gives heavy cover. I can use it like World War II soldiers use tanks to advance.
I don't think it's heavy.
Right?
I think it's light.
I thought the large ones gave heavy.
I don't.
The well, that's a good thing to look
Yeah.
up.
So
Legion rules. I know.
we'll let you look that up. Yeah,
the ATRTs
yeah, I'm
give
pretty
light.
sure it's light
All right.
because of his legs. I know that the tank gives heavy, but I'm pretty sure the ATST gives light. So what?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay.
You look it up while I'm. So
No. That's fine. I just don't know what the difference
because
would be
the
between them.
ATST is
But go
just
ahead.
legs, and I can see most of your miniatures between the legs, and the tank is actually like a barricade. That's the difference.
Okay.
So let's see. So what I said was take out that third astromech droid. You're now at 780. I would toss HQ uplink onto the ATST, and then you could give recon intel to the two stormtroopers that have the astromech droids, and that you could get them into positions during deployment where they could get behind some line of sight blocking terrain or get in a position where they could heal the ATST as it comes through. And then that would still give you like what is it, like a 6-point bid at that point.
Yeah, right now I've got an 11, which is too much. I like the 3 droids because it either if they want to kill it, they got to go all in on it, or they just see the 3 droids and they say, I'm not even going to bother, which also works for me. The idea too is because I've got so much stuff that's range 4 to infinity, is that I don't even really need to engage, right? I can just keep shooting.
Depends on the objective.
I mean, besides let's see, recover the supplies. I could just move the ATST up. I never thought I would say it, but sabotage the moisture evaporators is like the perfect. I normally never played it, but just to win by attrition, right? Because I don't need to even go close to you, right? That's the thought to it. Sorry, I'm kind of like looking through the rules here, plus trying to talk my point here. But no, it's not a bad idea. I know I've got the points, so I got to figure out something.
Yeah, well, I mean, because the other way with the third astromech droid, you had 11 points, and I'm just like, I don't even know,
Yeah, what to do
if you
with it,
want if you want blue player. I mean, you're leaving a lot of points on the table where you could readjust some stuff. And I mean, honestly, I don't know. I just don't see a need in 3. Like, I feel like it's too much of a focus. But maybe I could be
So when we
wrong,
played, I got real lucky with those evade dice, right? Like super god lucky, where I was like 50%
Yeah.
or no damage at all.
Yeah.
So
On white dice.
So
yeah.
the fact that I dodged a lot is a bad. We'll have to play again, maybe Friday or something. Because it's bad results, right? Because I normally it just takes it, right? ATSC, if it gets hit, it just eats the damage. So I have a lot because I thought I was going to take everything it got hit by, and with all the DLTs, that's if someone's running a heavy DLT list, that's anywhere from 6 to 4 damage a turn, not counting if they have a tank or something. So I thought if I had those 3, I could at least make sure it never got like a broken, because the robots can pull off that broken chip too, which isn't bad. Because I'm focusing on it, because normally I like to do the 2 ATSDs, but that's just too much. You suffer so much by doing that. But if I did 1 and really built the army around making sure it can always be effective, I was thinking maybe that might not be bad. And plus, if ATRT show up, I can be okay. If a speeder shows up, I'm okay. If a tank shows up, I can at least like try to punch some damage through to it. Maybe hit it from range 4. I think the tank is range 4 too, right?
Yes.
Jeez.
It sure
Yeah, range
is.
1 to 4.
Yeah.
Impact 2.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really the tanks are really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So, I guess the idea of the ATS was supposed to be a vehicle killer, right? Because it's got impact 3 built in.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it sure doesn't feel like it compared to that tank, right? Tank rolls red dice, which is pretty okay. It's interesting, right? Because maybe the ATST and tank will do very well against the new factions, unless they specifically bring armor, because they don't have the impact. They have that surge to crit or the critical X. So maybe impact, like the damage won't go through as much because if they don't hit the surge.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're good there because impact is real powerful, right? Impact is
Yeah.
real good.
So while you were talking about that, yeah, ground vehicles only
Ground
provide light
vehicles.
cover.
Okay. Light cover.
So it's under vehicles. It's on the second page.
Oh god, where the hell am I? Okay, that's fine. I mean, even light cover is okay. That's just to keep them, because again, like the robot's free action, so it's more just like while I'm doing something else, I can just be like, oh yeah, take a wound off.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I want to try this version of it once before the event just to see. And if I really feel like I'm missing it, I'll probably take your advice.
I just think it's going to be good. I think the 3 Astro droids, A, you're leaving a lot of points on the table, and B, I think it's just going to get distracting for you, and you're going to there's going to be 1 or 2 objectives that maybe it works for, but I think overall, I think you're going to be missing something. I feel.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean,
I could be wrong.
What I like about those droids too is once they're done, they're just an extra hit point for the unit dies. So they're the cheapest way to get an extra hit point in your unit. You know, they don't shoot. So, I mean, normally, because when I was running Veer's bikes, you just took DLT Stormtroopers, just 6 of them, right? And that's it. And then the 3 bikes, and that was considered good.
I will say though, I mean, you still have with your list, you have 10 activations with 11 points left.
Yeah, right. Like I was kind of worried when I was building it, because normally I built all these ATST lists, and I'd put Death Troopers into, and I was just trying to do too much. And I thought if I just focused on long range survivability, that was a valid strategy for me. And it turned out maybe it might be. Death Troopers are still real good, but actually, what was more obnoxious was those heal bots. Because the robots, like the tank will, I mean, the ATST should hang around a turn or 2 under fire, so the robots can have time to get there. With the med bots, if you move them out of place, like it's over, right? Because you can't bring a guy back who died last turn. It has to be that turn. So that can kind of stink.
Yep.
If you have to like go take an objective or something. So I don't know. I want to give this one shot just to see how it is. Do you think I even need a bid? Halfway through my thought, like, do I care? Because I say I could just slap HQ uplink on the ATST and go in with a 1-point bid and just not care.
You could, but you're going to run in. Okay, so you're going to run into situations like last night, though, where I'll have like someone like me will have the bid. You'll get moisture evaporators, and then all I'd have to do is hang back. And
yeah, you see, that was my plan, was for wait to you to come to me. Unfortunately, things just didn't work out the way I wanted them to. But
well, yeah, I mean, because I ended up getting attrition on you by, I think I took out the snipers, then I took out another unit of stormtroopers, then you took out my sniper, and then that was, you know what I mean? At that point, I was up on MOV, so
we each had a sniper and a
stormtrooper
down, and then my guys got moved too far ahead, and then that's just kind of where it all fell apart. But I think with 3 snipers, I don't really care. Because if I lose 3 snipers to a 2 sniper list, like if they're just sniping each other and I don't do it, that's really sad, right? That's a bad day. That's a cheap ice house beer day after this match. This isn't just to really drink the pain away. But no, I think ATST is going to be interesting because it felt better with that surge pilot. It definitely didn't feel as like hopeless. Sometimes you still get like the 3 hits or something with rerolls, but that could be on anything, right? How many times have I rolled stormtroopers and they just got all crits for whatever reason, or I've rolled even with 2 red dice, they've gotten nothing, and I'm like, needed at least 1 hit there, so it's dice, but I think that helps the variance. And the lone commander, the Gennaro commander, still has spotter 1, and I mean, with Veers, when I was doing the ATSD, he was just there to hand out aim tokens to the ATSD, so like, who cares? She still has rally 1. All my cards are generic, so if you kill her, I don't really care. Like, going, oh well. Like, I guess if you have a bounty hunter, that kind of sucks. But if you don't, like, I'm not out my command hand, right?
So that would be my only thing that would make me nervous with that if there's a yeah, well, if Boba Fett's out and there's a bounty,
Yeah.
he's got the bounty. He'll of course have the bounty on your commander. That it almost makes you either hold her back, and keep her
Yeah.
behind cover or ineffectual, or B, you end up putting her in a position where you lose a point. But I mean, it's one of those things you're going to have to face, right? Because there's definitely going to be
Oh, Boba Fett will
Boba Fett.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it. Because when I was playing Krennic, a lot of times I didn't want him up front, and he was just really there. I didn't even really want to use Compel all the time. He was just there to get that entourage in his command cards. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, well, he's just a unit you're kind of just not doing anything with. He's just there to hang out, especially because he's got those white defense die. Now with
Right.
Veers, you could push him forward, and he's got red. Like, he'll be okay, right? Like, better than Krennic. But even him, like, when he's not, when you pull him, sometimes you're like, geez. You're like
Yeah.
looking around. You're like, I guess you can spotter and dodge. There's besides that, you do the maximum firepower. And you're like, well, okay, now he's going to sit behind this rock forever. So I didn't really care about that one. I know definitely when I was playing Rebel leaders, I always felt like I really cared where they were and what they were doing. But like with Veers and Krennic, I didn't really care where they were. But then again, like I've played a handful of games. I've played a lot of games with Veers and only a handful with Krennic, so I don't have a whole lot of experience to speak to that.
I find them both to be late game pushes.
Yeah, you were saying that, yeah.
Yeah, so like what I tend to do is I try to I've played both of them, and actually my rally point list, which we'll go over in a second, is playing both of them. I put them in a position where they can support, clearly they're supporting the cast, but then as in a late game push, they become way more important because when you have, a 6 health Krennic, even with white dice, or a 5 health Veers with red dice, holding down a position, or like holding down evaporator, or holding down a box or something, they're not as easy to get rid of late game.
Yeah, Veers more so than Krennic. Krennic sometimes just dies. I can tell you that from
Sure.
experience.
So my list, that I'm on 99% sure it's not going to change, but it's Krennic with strict orders, Veers naked, 4 Stormtroopers with DLTs, Imperial Death Troopers with the DLT, Hunter, comms relay, recon intel, and a focus fire config. Another Death Trooper with DLT, a Hunter, recon intel, and focus fire config. Then 2 snipers. So the idea, a lot of people have asked me, why is the comms relay in there? Because what happens is, for 5 points, right? And there's really nothing, and this gives me like an 8 or 9 point bid, but like for 5 points with Entourage, with Krennic, I can give that Death Trooper an order token, and then comms relay, I can send it off to somebody else that may need it. And so,
That's pretty good.
it comes up maybe once or twice a game sometimes, but really it's worth it in the positions I've used it, because I was running another list without Veers with the comms relay, and when I've used it, it's like, oh yeah, I can give these sniper or these stormtroopers or these snipers an order token now, and I can still do everything that I wanted to do. So it's pretty good.
No, you got like it's a lot to go at, and it's hard to target prioritize because everything's pretty good, right? Like it doesn't feel different if I kill one thing to another.
Yeah,
which is a good thing on the list, right? Like everything's dangerous, so I can't just say
and
if I kill that, I win.
I like it. It's a good. It's like I have a 4-4-2 mix of order tokens, which feels pretty good because when especially on some of the command cards, you're handing out deploy the garrison. Almost every command card besides the 1 pips, you're handing out 3 or more order tokens, and and sometimes 4. Like with Annihilation Looms, you can hand out 4. With Imperial Discipline, you could hand out 4. You know, push, deploy the garrison, you're doing 3. You know, Voracious Ambition and Maximum Firepower, you're handing out 2. So you're always got 2, at minimum 2 order tokens that you're giving out no matter what you're playing. And then, you know, you play Voracious Ambition and he gets to put 3 on his card. Like, dude, you know, there's a lot of order control in this list, and I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. Like, I was thinking like pinned down. I'm like, well, I'll shoot 2 things, but the things in the bag, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
there's just so much. There's not like a good target.
Yeah, and it gives you options. I really like Veer's Imperial Discipline, because basically it's General Veers in 2 units. When a friendly unit is issued an order, it may recover.
Yeah, that's really strong with the Death Troopers. Like, super strong.
So yeah, so you know, just as an option, you give Veers, and then you have 2 units with his card. So what you do is you give 1 to one of the Death Troopers, 1 to a Stormtrooper, and then you entourage the other Death Trooper. So now both your Death Troopers can recover.
Super good.
And now you get to use their weapon
Yeah,
again.
it's super good.
Yeah. You know, and Maximum Firepower is good, especially, you know, I didn't use it on your ATST last night. I used it on one of your Healbot units, but you know, that's good with with the meta shifting back towards armor again, especially with the land speeder, the tank, and the ATST all being.
Oh, imagine the dream
relevant.
of actually getting like 4 damage on a tank right off the bat. Like,
oh my god.
Yeah, right. Like, so good.
And he, you know, plus with Veers, I mean, he surges to crit.
Yeah.
And then you have impact too. You know what I mean? So like you have your chances of getting, especially the ATST or the land speeder, your chances of like severely damaging one of those in turn 1 significantly increases.
It's pretty good. I was really afraid you were going to do it, because normally I'm so used to people using that for like snipers, right?
Yeah,
just to get rid of snipers.
Well, yeah. So, looking at the battlefield, I mean, I definitely should have done it to the ATST. That was a good move. But then in my mind, I was like, you know what? The ATST, I think I can ignore it still. Like, I think I need to maybe not ignore it, but I don't have to give it as much attention. But then I was more concerned about your heal bots because I was like, God, those things are annoying. And they're, you know, I'm never going to get rid of these units. And I need to start deleting some of these other units quickly here. And so that's why I kind of just tossed it on them. But yeah.
No, it's super good. It's
well, and I like it too. Sorry, Evan. But so you maximum firepower right into whether it's a ATST, a tank, or into like a hero, Luke, Vader, you know, Leia, anybody really. And then I have Hunter, both the Death Troopers. So now they're going to get aim tokens once they start shooting at whatever that thing is.
They're good, man. Death Troopers are so good. Like, I remember I was shooting at Nick's last night, and it was just like search to defend, 5 hits, 5 defense. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
You got 1.
Yeah, it's just like the only way I could feel like I could get it is if I got 1 hit in, and then you'd be like, roll 1 blank, and I'm like, that's how I got to do it. The slow roll.
Red dice are powerful.
They sure are.
Like, red defense dice are super powerful. Red offense dice are super powerful.
The negative effect of that, and it's more of a mental state, is that with the Death Troopers, because of the surge, because of the red dice, because of what they do, when you start losing some, it can be a little bit of a more
tilting.
Yeah, it starts feeling like, oh god.
With Death Troopers, that's the thing about them though. When you start losing them, their power goes down considerably, right? Like, I don't know any other unit in the game that feels more worse to lose even 1 guy. You're like, all right.
Well, yeah, and I think I don't know that it's statistically right, but it just moral, like, you're just like, it's just a moral victory for your opponent because you're just like, oh good. They're dying. They're dying.
Finally, they hate
They're
snipers.
Well, part of that is probably because they're new, and so people still have this big idea in their head of how impactful they are. It's like, you know how it is when a new unit comes out and they're invincible and they're impossible to beat at the same time, depending on whether or not you're playing them or you're facing them, and eventually they just become another unit. Granted, Death Troopers are insanely good, but I think they're also still bigger than um they're bigger in your heads than they actually are.
Yeah. That suppressive range 4 suppressive
Yeah,
feels
that
pretty
is
good.
really
Not gonna lie,
nasty.
because you're not even shooting to kill. You're just shooting to like.
Well, that's what I was doing. I was shooting to
Uh,
get your guys to run off the board, and that's what I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because suppressive fire followed up by Krennic's command card.
Annihilation
Yeah.
looms. Yep. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Suppression is the best.
Suppression's pretty awesome.
Also-
Suppression.
Also playing Veers is really good. Like from the other side of the table, he doesn't do much, but when you're actually playing him, it's like the opposite effect. It's just like when you're playing against him, it's just like he feels like he doesn't do anything. But when you're playing him, he does a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like handing out aim
Yeah.
tokens is insane. Like
Yeah, it's really
with
good.
Leia, like I like playing Leia and handing out dodge tokens, but those dodge tokens feel necessary just to survive and get to do things. Where Veer's aim tokens just feel like bonus, and my units that I put them on get to do more things.
Well, it's free actions that you get to actively use, right? Whereas dodge tokens are kind of like maybe if they shoot at them. Aim tokens, you're probably going to use them.
Dodge tokens are like bonuses, and if you're activating a unit and taking a dodge token, that's probably not a good thing. That means you're probably not in a good position.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. I mean, just like if you're playing Veers, for those of you listening, like one of my favorite things to do with him is if you can, you maximum firepower first turn. You put him in a good position where he can spotter then aim himself. And so what you do is you spotter 2 to your 2 snipers that you've hidden behind line of sight. You give him an aim, he does his maximum firepower, and now you just try, it's tougher with this without improvised orders, but like you hope that you can hold back your snipers until either their snipers have gone or they've put themselves in a position, and now your snipers have an aim, so now they can move out and shoot, and so they get 3 actions basically for that turn.
Yeah. Action economy.
And I think
good.
with the double with Krennic and Veers in this list, I think it gives me more opportunity to be a little bit more aggressive with Veers too, and start pushing him up with maybe the Death Troopers and handing out aim tokens to the Death Troopers as we move up.
Yeah, he's real good at Death Troopers. Because man, that was it. Precise 2. Jeez.
Yeah. So yeah.
Nope, they're all pretty good, and I'm gonna hate fighting them. I like using them, hate fighting them.
Right. Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because like the other thing I was thinking with coordinated fire, if you put a comms relay on your Death Trooper and you do entourage, so now you have 3. You get your 3 core units that all get a order token. You entourage to the Death Trooper. You then comms relay it back to Veers, and then he hands out the aim tokens to start the aim chain.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, with coordinated fire. Yeah.
The only problem
that's
is,
still pretty good.
Do you take out Imperial Discipline or Annihilation Looms to put in coordinated fire? Yeah, I know some people would probably say Annihilation Looms, but
no, I think Imperial Discipline. Annihilation Looms is so clutch to get those. You play it, everyone gets 2. You wait till 5 or 6, and then there's going to be that like one guy holding an objective who doesn't roll off the suppression and runs, and then you just got yourself that point, right?
Yeah,
I agree with myself.
Yep. Oh, well, that's good. Perfect. All right. Well, anything else you boys want to talk
We had
about?
an article drop.
Oh yeah, Sabine. I
She looks
forgot about
pretty
that.
good.
So yeah, she does. I think most of her stuff was spoiled when Alex and Luke did that live play. The only thing that I think wasn't really spoiled was that electro grappling line.
That's
Oh, for God's sake.
dude. Jeez. It's so good.
So if for 5 points, you have to exhaust it to use it.
It is
but-
little action too.
And it's an action. You choose an enemy trooper unit at range 1 and in line of sight. It gains 2 immobilized tokens and 2 suppression tokens.
I guess the bonus to Boba Fett's is its action pip command card, I suppose. But hers she can use multiple times, right?
Yep. Right. Well, you got ready, so then your next turn you're ready,
Yeah.
then you do it again to something else. So like you could literally just sit there and
That's really
hold
funny.
an objective. And just hand out immobilized and suppression tokens. Oh my god.
It's so good. So when you're mobilized, you can't panic flee, right?
Correct.
Oh, it's this enemy trooper. All right, I was gonna say, man, maybe if one of your guys is going to panic, you just root him to the ground. But I guess that's not very rebelly, huh?
Well, so the speed is reduced by
2.
2, yeah.
So Boba Fett can still make a range 1 move. And that's a good point.
I think it's reduced by 1 per immobilized token, so then it would reduce it by 2, right? Because she gives out 2. So like, so yeah, so Stormtroopers can't go anywhere, but Boba could.
Her and Boba Fett can still move, yeah. At least still range
and then
1.
And you remove an immobilized token at the end of the turn, so it's still really good. And then the combat shield is pretty interesting. So you get the shield; it's 10-point upgrade. You get the shield 1, and then recharge 1. So when you recover, you flip an inactive shield token.
Yep, it's did they show the back of it yet? To say what
No.
it's probably gonna be an exhaust. It's got to be.
No, it's not an exhaust.
Oh, it's not.
So the combat shield is you gain shielded 1. You
Yep.
have 1 shield token. So then I'm assuming if somebody shoots you, you then recover, you recharge 1, and you flip that shield back up. So now that it's active again.
Because the shield adds 1 block to your defense roll.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, yeah, it's got to be a recover action to get it back, to charge back up.
But you use that, I mean, you might recover. There might be opportunity there, so that's interesting. Yeah, her explosions. I think we've gone over all the other cards, right?
Yeah.
When they
Everything was kind of spoiled on that stream, minus the shield, and we get a better close up look of endurance. So actually, this brings up an interesting point. You know how pretty much all except 1K so far, everything they've drawn in card art becomes a unit in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the one that hasn't?
No, but I bet you do.
Wait, say that again?
I do. Yeah. So like when they had the endurance has the tauntaun on it, and we're like, oh, that'd be neat threading tauntauns, but probably not, right? And then so tauntauns come out, and then same thing with Bosk with Hunter. We're like, oh, well, it'd be cool. And then Bosk comes out. So I was sure it was 100% of the time, but so far there's been 1 exclusion to that for 1 character who's shown up in card art that hasn't showed up in the game.
Go on.
It's a force power. It's a light side force power.
Okay.
There's only 1, I think. Jedi Mind Trick, Old Man Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Ah.
So here's my Evan conspiracy time thought. They're going to release a wave with Old Man Kenobi and Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
To cover because that's their dramatic clash in Rebels, and that'd be really interesting, I think, to see what depending on what, because the art is from him when he was invading the Death Star, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But that'd be really a cool throwback to a really awesome point in the show. Plus, Darth Maul could be a C, because Darth Maul is never CIS, but he would be an operative, right?
Yep. I think they would both.
So
be
I'm
operatives.
thinking, yeah, that's true. Because he didn't really join up. I suppose if it's you got Old Man Kenobi, then you've got Young Kenobi.
Yep.
As long as they are different, make sure they didn't cross. That'd be interesting to have Old Man versus New, Younger Kenobi.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that would be good to have them as operatives.
Yeah, no, that's so I'm thinking you might see Old Man Kenobi come up with Darth Maul as
Interesting.
thing. Yeah, but I was looking through it, and then I remembered I was just organizing all my cards the other night, and I'm like, yeah, that came up. That's a thing. That's a thing. I mean, hell, even the Death Trooper throwing the frag grenade, they made him a sculpt, right?
Right.
And so I was going.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, okay. Well, on conspiracy theories, one of our listeners reached out to us
Uh-oh.
and said he thought it was interesting that if you look at the new paint sets, some of the names that they have, like Rebel Flight Suit for an orange,
Oh yeah,
Mimban Mud,
yeah, the mud one got me. I'm like, all right, they couldn't just say dirt brown, but
Tusken Raider Tan, R2D2 Blue, Jawa Robes.
that's it's funny because at first I was making fun of those paint names, because I'm like, all right, like I get it, you got to name these Star Wars stuff. You can't just call it like light blue, dark blue, or something. Which is weird too because the sets for the actual like side, they tell you what each paint is made for, which I thought was really cool, like Stormtrooper armor, right? So you're just doing
Yeah.
it. So the fact that that's a precedent set and that the paints are coming out saying like R2D2 blue and things like that, also mean that they could be those units are coming, or in some like shape or form.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. We're laughing, like I can see someone going up like, wow, that's a really nice layer of Sith robe black you got on there. Oh wow, that blaster bolt red really came out good on that lightsaber. Like saying those color names feels kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Or bounty hunter yellow. I get it's Bosk's suit, but geez, come on. There's no other
Well,
yellow.
I love how they did it. Like it's 50-50. Like they didn't do it with all of them. Like some of them, they're like shadow wash.
Yeah,
some
right.
tone wash. It's like what?
Like the guy just ran out of names. He's like, whatever, black.
Wow. You're like, oh, I thought we were doing fun names.
Yeah,
No.
right. Like we were.
Not
Oh wow,
done.
it's a nice. That's not ultramarine blue. That's R2D2 blue. Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Right. Well, and then I like how there's blue lightsaber. So is that all I can use that blue for?
Yeah, right. Like as a new guy, I'd be like, okay, I guess so.
Right. Well, because they already have the Duros skin and they have the Fleet Trooper blue. Like, okay, so that's just for lightsabers. I have a whole friggin'
Just
paint
for one
bottle
lightsaber.
for one little piece of.
The worst part is I'm
plastic.
such a amateur. I'd just like open up the top, dip Luke lightsaber in, pull it out, and be like, all right, good. We're good.
Done and done. Oh my god, that's funny. But all right, well, I think we'll wrap it up. Just as a reminder, please go register for the Northeast Open up on our website. Get in. I'm going to start announcing some great prize stuff any day now, and so you're going to want to be in on this early. And don't forget about the giveaway and subscribe to all our channels and like us everywhere. It just helps us, do stuff. That's it, and get the word out. That little thing.
Oh man, the more people, the better, right?
I agree. Yes, wholeheartedly. So anyways, well, thanks everybody for listening, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Everyone, stay rad.
Take it easy, everybody.
Join us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper Podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.